Already? Oh, perfect. All right, I'm recommending one change to the agenda. We do have some, people with us to talk about, who's with us today? We got Rock and, and wasn't there someone else, another? Geotech here to talk about drainage, so let's get them. I want to move, basically section 9, the new field. It's all under new fields construction updates. We'll move them up to, right after chairperson's update. So 9 will become 6, so that we can get them on their way, so you don't have to sit through everything. Other than that, anyone else have any other changes you want to make? Jack, anything you wanted to add? Are you good with? Okay. Joe, anything? Where is he? Where's Mr. Culata? Oh, there he is. We're just asking if there's anything you wanted to add to the agenda, or if you're good with what's on there. Okay. All right. So I'll take a motion to approve the agenda with the one change of moving section 9 up to section 6.
So moved.
Is it, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed, say nay. Anyone abstaining, motion carries. Very good. Minutes, you should have all gotten the minutes in your email. Hopefully all reviewed them. Anyone have any issues with the minutes, questions, comments, changes, omissions, anything? Okay, if not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the March 20th meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Anyone abstaining? Shannon abstains. Okay. Any public comments? Anyone here from the public? No one's here.
No submissions.
No submissions. All right. My update, I don't really have much of an update, because I think everything I would talk about is going to be covered in the reports that are coming up. The big hot topic is our little kiddie pool over at the middle school that we need to do something about. I'm sure they'll garner a lot of conversation. Other than that, some other things. Jack, I'll let you update us on the stuff with the state and Stu and all that. And other than that, I don't really have anything. So, Newfield. So let's go right into. Let's do the Newfield update real quick, and then we'll go right into the drainage. It's probably all the same thing, anyways.
Yeah, so currently we are continuing the sub-base within the C&D buildings. We've stopped establishing sub-base at the A and B buildings based upon our water issues that we're dealing with.
And that, for people's reference, that's basically the academic wings. You stopped doing that work, right?
Correct. As of our last owners meeting, we have proceeded on a T&M basis with dewatering at the A and B buildings. We've set multiple well points, and we've been pumping water out of there. I'd say we're seeing somewhat of a drop in the water table from what we've done to date so far.
Are all the well points drilled, or just only for A and B?
Just for B.
Just for B.
Yes, we have 3 well points around B right now.
And those are going 24/7, right? Those pumps.
That's correct. We are discharging off-site at this point, and we're continuing the progress the best we can.
And those are getting dumped into the fields, into our neighbors' fields, right?
That is correct.
So just want to do a little shout out to our neighbor to the left. Thank you very much for allowing us to do that. We're very grateful.
Absolutely. You want to add anything else? That's pretty much it right now. That's pretty much it right now that we're.
Okay.
That
So
we're dealing with.
what's going to trigger putting in the pumps or the wells for the other areas?
Okay, so right now, just before we left today, we received a dewatering plan, which is the one that we're implementing in the short term.
Okay.
And we received a rough order of magnitude on that as well.
Okay.
We're still reviewing that at this moment in time, and when we get further along in that process, we'll present. In conjunction with that, we're also getting a third-party engineered system, which would be quote-unquote the permanent system, in which we're pricing it two ways. We're pricing it going to the field, as well as pricing it to go to the 30-inch drainage line that goes out to the sedimentation pond at the north side of Watchers Park. So that's where we're at right now. We're trying to get an A and a B. We don't know how long our neighbor is going to be kind, so we want to make sure that we're prepared. So,
And the good news, we're supposed to have like 5 sunny days next week.
yes, I saw that as well.
Okay, so you have a plan right now, and you're waiting for a third party to come up with a different plan, or a supplement, or something to supplement your plan.
The plan that we have right now is for the temporary and immediate measures.
Yeah,
We want to make sure that it's going to be adequate for what we're doing right now.
yeah.
That's what we'll put that in for review as a submission.
Okay,
And then obviously we got the A and the B coming from a third party. And when we have all the information together, then we can make an informed decision.
gotcha. Okay. So Jack, what's your timeline looking for when you're gonna have like numbers to talk to the design committee over, or the
Our-
change committee?
Our next subcommittee meeting for change orders is next Thursday.
Is that too late to have that meeting?
I'm gonna see how it plays out. Right now, I don't think that it necessarily is.
Okay.
It may take that much time to get everything together.
Okay.
And I know that we had talked about potentially having an emergency session if we needed to.
Yeah.
Which, if we need to, I will call for. But in the meantime, I'm planning on having everything ready for next Thursday.
Okay. Because it feels like right now we have slowed down. Like, right, we're hoping we'll be further along in the process than we are. So I don't want us to like don't let us stop you from moving. Like, you know,
No,
if you have stuff to talk to us about, like on Monday, I'll get everyone together Monday if we have to.
And for the record, our T&M on this dewatering is running right now. So
Yeah.
we haven't stopped that process. It's just coming to that rough order of magnitude for you guys to see what your exposure is on that portion of it, okay?
Okay, gotcha.
So we're still moving ahead regardless of where we're at right now.
Okay. And then the last time we had a meeting, we talked about the I keep forgetting what you guys call it, unsuitable soils, unusable.
Yeah, we're encountering pockets here and there. We're noting it. We're getting rid of it as we need to.
Okay.
And as of right now, we're still within the allowance value. So
That's the key right there.
Yep.
Okay, very good. I knew that. I want everyone else to know that. All right. Anything else? All right.
no, we're good. Thank you.
So, needless to say, which is why we have our guests here today, I'm a little worried about the water. So we had a plan for the 100-year storm. This is like a 1-year storm because we have had rain for the past year and it's not going anywhere. And I don't know what the heck is happening, but it's like, I'm worried. I'm very worried. And like around town, we have a serious drainage issues and we've have water in our other schools happening. And if we build this brand new building and get like an ounce of water in there and within the first year, it's not going to be pretty. So I need like high confidence that we're not going to have moisture or flooding issues when this building's built.
So just to touch on that explicitly,
Yeah.
so the finished floor of the building is at 146.5,
Yeah.
and the overflow from the road is at 143.41.
So 3 feet.
Yes. So you have essentially 3 feet of buffer before it would ever get into the building. So we don't anticipate that the water would ever go essentially to slab or above slab.
So even if our retention pond fills to the brim with water,
Yep.
all that is going to go across the road, we're saying, and it's going to dump in a field that's at the bottom of another hill.
Yep. Which
And
then
you're
goes to a pond, which then goes eventually to a wetland.
Okay.
which is all part of the planning and zoning approval.
And the reason why that water's not moving there today is because we don't have the right pipes and stuff to push it, or?
Oh, so no, so technically, it's more just the nature of how the topography works. So current existing conditions, everything, like I said last time, is right to left, so it's all going towards that one depression area.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the pocket that it wants to stay and hold and retain and then saturate into those surrounding soils. That, regardless of us, once you go past our road, it essentially stays at about elevation 140, 139 until it gets to that pond. Once it gets to that pond, if you watch the topography, it overtops and then starts going towards even further west, towards maybe it's like a brook or something that's further west.
Yeah.
But
Leads-
everything leads that way during probably the 500-year storm event.
Hey, Mark, I got a question.
Yep.
Ted Von Rosenberg,
Yep.
Geodesign.
Can you use a microphone, please?
Question, where are the roof
Oh,
leaders?
can you go to microphone?
And just say
Identify
your name and
myself,
your
Ted Von Rosenving of Geodesign.
Yep.
Question about where are the roof leaders going? When the rain hits the roof, where's
So-
that going?
So currently, the proposed design is everything goes to the underground detention system first.
Okay, so it
So, and
gets,
that is upstream of the basin.
oh, it's
so-
Coltex and things like that?
Yeah,
or-
it's a StormTech MC 3500.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we have a two-tiered system, essentially, under the proposed conditions. There's the underground detention system, which is located within the parking lot. That takes the roof leaders in the surrounding parking lot. And then there's essentially a divide line, which is the cumulative of the outflow from the underground detention system and the new parking lot that's just south of the building. That all goes to the above-ground system, which is then attenuated through there. So you have two technical systems going on.
And the water retention system will,
Yes.
will be dug
Yes.
to be a lower point than.
Yeah, I think it's 2.5 feet lower than what was previously existing, so you can get into that gravelly sand layer, which
Okay.
is essentially where they're encountering the most water. So
That's already been
bigger.
dug out, right?
So those are two different things. So
No,
that's the
oh.
temporary sediment trap, which is kind of trying to hold particulates that are accumulating from the rainfall. So rainfall's coming over, it hits there, it settles. That way we're trying to be good neighbors, so you're not trying to make sure that the guy next to us has a bunch of dirt on his lawn. So we're holding water there in a temporary condition. When everything's kind of stabilized is when you would create the basin itself, which is approximately twice as large as what is currently there now.
That's what I'm trying to picture is that
Yeah.
now we've scorched kind of the earth.
Yeah.
And everything that's fallen is just naturally settling to
Correct.
the natural low point. We're
Yep.
going to create an artificial new low point,
Yep.
big pool, and any rainwater that hits the roof will be directed into there.
Well, any rainwater that hits the roof will go into the underground detention system
Right.
first. Yep. Yep.
Underground detention system.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
that
So it'll
artificial
hold it
hole
and
that
then
you'll create.
Spit a little bit out every time that you have a rain event,
Yeah.
and then hopefully the surrounding soils are also absorbing some of that water.
Did we do testing on the surrounding soils? Like, what if it's like clay or something that?
No, so there were borings done by Geodesign that basically show that it's a couple layers of material, then this really good sandy gravel, and then it starts getting into a denser material, probably 10 feet, 12 feet down.
Okay.
And that veneer of gravelly sand does change throughout the property. It goes from like 2 feet to like 10 feet at some points.
Hmm. Okay. Anyone have any other questions? Am I the only one who has a lot of questions? Jack?
Just to be clear on what the situation is that it's not that the soil isn't good, it's that the soil is wet. You know, a year of extra heavy rainfall has raised the groundwater line from where it was when the borings were taken to where we'd like to put our footings. So that's what we're, you know, for context, that's what we're fighting against, is the groundwater that's higher than we had expected it to be. So all of these things, you know, down the line as far as stormwater retention and the basin and the underground, that's all well and good, but, you know, right now, in order to even get that underground system in, we would be underwater,
Pretty much.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's the difficulty, is that we've got to, that's what the dewatering is for, get the water out of our way to build what we need to build, and then hopefully it'll stop raining soon, so that things will come back down to a normal groundwater level.
So footings are supposed to go in like not next week, but the week after, right? Do you think we still?
The conference will automatically end in 5 minutes.
Someone didn't dial in. Okay. Are we still on track to do that?
We pushed it off a week right now, but maybe 2.
Okay.
If we can get the place dry out,
I assume that pushes the whole schedule out.
we're hoping we can make that time up when we finally get there.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Did you guys want to bring up anything else? Any other information you think we should know about? Any other risks, particularly, we should know about?
Ted Von Rosening again from Geodesign. When I drove around the site today before the meeting, I noticed, I just was looking for catch basins in the pavement surrounding the site. Everything wants to go towards your site, especially right now. So there's not a lot of surface drainage in those paved areas. Did I miss something, or you agree with that?
Cromwell has
Notorious.
poor drainage to begin with. The whole town doesn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've worked on a few problems like the slope failure over at the country club and some other projects, so
Yeah.
we understand.
Which is part of why I think we're all really, I mean, the board, maybe it's just me. I'm very nervous about, that we have a really strong plan in place to prevent flooding, not just from the school, but like obviously the surrounding area, the soccer, the multi-purpose field. I'm telling you, if that thing floods, I'm going to lose my job, which I don't get paid for anyway, but still.
Well, one more thing, just to give you some perspective, we went back and looked at the rainfall records. We normally get low 40s annually here.
Yeah.
In the last 4 months, we've had an aggregate of 26 inches of rain, which is, if you extend that out for 12 months, that's almost double what we normally get in a year.
So does that change any of the analyses done or any of the design work done, knowing that we're getting more than average water?
Well, I don't know if it's a long-term trend. I can't speak to that, but I
Let's
think
say it
that-
is. Let's say that this is like one of those 100-year things where it's just going to rain every weekend for the next 3 years. Does that change our plan?
The key thing is to get the roof on and the pavement in and the drainage system in, and it kind of get across the swamp, if you will. So it's a temporary condition. You need to get there. That's the problem.
So if we had a 500-year, is it a 500-year storm? Is that a thing?
Well, so technically we can't regulate a 500-year storm. So specifically the town of Cromwell, along with the state of Connecticut, I am on, okay. Our drainage analysis based on the geotechnical report establishes the water table, all that. And that is based on NOAA, which is aggregate storm data. So we take that data, put that into our storm modeling software, and essentially come up with the computations that say, hey, we're going to be holding X amount of storms in the basins. So we've designed for the 2 through the 100-year storms, which is the requirement. Sure, you'll have a little bit of what I would think is like feet wet at some points, so high groundwater table, but in the long term, when we finally get to pavements, which will now, have more inlets than previous, so more catch basins by about 10 times as many catch basins as you currently have. That's taking all that water, forcing it into pipes. We don't typically take into account the pipe capacity of the actual volume of a pipe. So you also technically have additional volume that you can hold through the pipe system. So that's additional belt and suspenders. Also, you're making sure that that surface flow is getting into pipe systems as opposed to into the groundwater immediately. So you're holding that back a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
So under the proposed conditions, it's still our opinion that it's most likely going to be fine. Because this is really an anomaly.
So you don't think that the water level's ever going to reach 146 feet?
No, I feel like that's,
I mean, we have bigger problems, right?
yeah,
like if that's
exactly.
happening, we
Yeah.
got bigger
Noah's
problems.
Well, I
Ark
mean-
showing
Okay.
up.
And like the soccer field,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the soccer
we're-
field, I
we're-
think, is at
we're-
148,
Good point.
We're evacuating Cromwell, right?
Yeah.
Like,
pretty much.
Yeah, the soccer field that existed, you know, before we dug it up. I mean, my guess is there were soggy waters. There's times you'd stick your cleats in, and maybe the water could come up to your ankle if you push down. But
Yeah.
like if you're thinking 3 feet above there, I mean, there'd be canoes in the
Yeah.
in the park.
That's true.
So I guess
Good point.
that'd be like a
Thank
national
you.
crisis.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll supply the canoe.
All right. Okay.
get your go bags ready.
Then we're all so really it's just the near term construction that is the most concerning. We don't have to worry about long term stuff, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
Okay, and we don't really know what the magnitude of the fixes are until you get all the information together, right?
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Moving on to communications. And you guys are free to leave, by the way. Thank you.
No report.
Yes. Thanks.
I don't know if you heard me, I said no report.
No report. Okay. Design subcommittee.
Nothing.
All right. Perkins Eastman. Do you have a report, or do you want to just go right into the accounting review?
We could go right into the accounting,
Okay.
the ASR.
So everyone should have received a copy of the memo submitted. By Joe on the 29th. Ken Cleveland was not here today, but he sent me notes, so we can look at those as we go through each one. I think probably the best way to handle this is maybe going task by task. Talk about each one individually.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. All right. So, just for the record, this is a memo of services that Perkins Eastman, through their accounting review, have deemed were we were not invoiced for incorrectly. So they are looking for compensation on these various tasks.
Can I clarify that?
Please, because I probably said that wrong.
It's not an accounting thing. It's their explanation of things that they believe were above and beyond what they had included in their proposal, and so they want additional compensation. So it wasn't an account that they didn't bill you for it as an accounting error. It's something that they want to add to the value of their contract so that they can bill it.
Okay. It's their accounting department that found it, right?
That's what we heard, is that their level of effort was greater than they anticipated, so they're looking for compensation.
Okay. All right, let's get right into it. So task one, the expanded auditorium scope, increasing the size and seating capacity of the auditorium to accommodate the amended educational specification. The original educational specification indicated an auditorium area of 3,500 square feet with a minimum of 250 seats with a stage of 900 square feet. Through a subsequent vote of the BOE, the auditorium was increased to a minimum of 496 seats with a stage increased to, I believe it was 1,300 square feet, not 1,200. But anyways, this resulted in revisions to the architectural, structural, landscape, and site drawings. So we had an ed spec that was approved. Before we went to referendum the first time, we had increased the square footage of the stage. I think it's 1,300 square feet. Maybe it's 1,200. Wasn't it 1,300? I don't know, whatever. And the seat allocation was a 250 minimum that CSG recommended we leave in there as opposed to increasing it. There was supposed to be an addendum to the ed spec that was written, but apparently it was never supplied during the RFQ process. So we went back to the BOE to clarify that the 496 seats, we got their approval on that, had it all recorded. Nice. in the meantime, when we found, after the original design plans were submitted to us, we realized that the seating was undersized, and we had asked for it to be expanded with the stage, and this is kind of where that task falls into place. So my hesitation here is that if the work was significant enough, I don't understand why the request wasn't made to us at that time, right? Because we were making other changes at that time. I know we had moved like the auditorium, the cafeteria locations, and we had to move. We wanted to increase the ceiling of the band room because of whatever's happening above that. So things were changing. At that time, it wasn't like this was the last thing that we just tacked on at the end. There was actually changes happening after that. So if the change to move that wall was significant, I guess my question is, why wasn't that brought to us first as an added service?
So it was a matter of timing of when it was occurring. So we made the changes and we were moving right through design development, and then we got the schematic design estimate, and we started to work on value management at that point. So that's why we just kept moving forward with that layout as proposed.
Something doesn't add up.
Through the chair. The contract between the town and the architect, section 4.2.1 regarding additional services, says upon recognizing the need to perform the following additional services, and it lists a whole bunch of criteria that would trigger them to have the opportunity to be paid for extra effort. The architect shall notify the owner with reasonable promptness and explain the facts and circumstances giving rise to the need. The architect shall not proceed to provide the following additional services until the architect receives the owner's written authorization. Now, as Joe had mentioned, they didn't want to stop. And I used the analogy when we had our initial meeting with the town manager that, well, if you're in the heat of battle and you're running out of ammo, you don't stop. You communicate, you ask for more, and you keep on fighting. So in this instance where we're trying to get a design done in order to maintain a schedule, the impact on progress to send an email, to have a comment at a meeting like this, that we're happy to do what you've asked us to do with this revised ed spec, but oh, by the way, it's going to impact you because we have to do X, Y, and Z additional things, would have taken only as long as it just took me to say now. And this is being articulated a full year and more after that conversation took place. So I think the condition of reasonable promptness is definitely a missed goal here. But it says shall notify, not ought to notify, might notify, but if it's going to cost the owner more, they shall notify. And a year later kind of takes us aback. And I know when we had that initial conversation on these topics, I don't have a copy of whatever Ken has done since then, but I know his comment at that meeting with the town manager was, yeah, there was effort. I can acknowledge that there was likely some effort, not to try to quantify if this is the exact number of hours somebody would agree to or not, but where was the communication, and how much do we take after the fact? We're in a position where thankfully the project came in under the projected budget. But if we were, on the hair's edge of being able to afford this project and had made other decisions prior to this notice coming forward, we might have bought something else that we couldn't afford and then suddenly be surprised with this. So the item of timeliness of communications, I think, is important to keep in mind as we go through this entire list. But I just wanted to point out that section of the contract. The contract knife cuts both ways. Keeps us all accountable.
Ken Cleveland wrote some comments. He also mentioned requesting the service at the time. And he said we would be justified in requesting additional backup materials, such as timesheets, consultant proposals, etc., to substantiate the request. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Just a matter of like process. Do we ultimately vote on like each task, or?
That's a good question, Jack. Would we need a motion to approve, or just no motion means not approving anything?
I would look at this in its overall context and then
Okay.
have a conversation about it, call it a negotiation, whatever word you want to put to it. And then ultimately, we come to, to some agreement on what out of this collection of requests is reasonable and that the committee would support, and then put that to a vote.
Okay. All right, so let's go through each task first, and then we'll talk about them holistically.
And to your comment, Ken's comment about, information on the consultants in the spreadsheet that was on the fourth page of the request, the fourth page of the request packet. There are line item values for the various consultants: civil, structural, landscape, and MEP. Not the same as having proposals from the consultants, which Ken's comment referred to, but there is some articulation here.
Thanks for that clarification.
All right, moving on to the next one then. Value management process. Per agreement, we informed the building committee that the scope and the project budget were not in alignment, and that neither the scope or the budget would need to be, and that either the scope or the budget would need to be adjusted to move the project forward. In spite of this understanding, we were directed to retain the educational specification program and to value engineer the project as much as possible. Subsequently, the town decided to increase project funding, and the result was an unnecessary, significant effort to bring the project into budget. So, I think I'm a little stuck on the word unnecessary, significant effort. So when we went into this project, it was a $58 million project. And after the first pass, we were at 76 million, I think it was. 75.8. And then we had to value manage it down to like 72 million, something like that. 70.7.
Well, we didn't accept all of that, but that was one of our passes.
So even at that, the town, and we went into the second referendum, telling the town council, like, we still have additional value engineering we need to do because we realize it's still high. So, we were really sensitive to the costs that the school has on our small town. And every bit of effort required to bring that budget down is absolutely necessary. There is no such thing as unnecessary work here. Even to like today, if I could still find places to cut costs, I would. So, just the fact that we were able to pull $6 million right off the top tells me that, I hate to use the word over-engineered, but there was stuff in the building we didn't need, right? And we're not architects. You guys are the architects, so we didn't know what was going in until we saw it. So value management, and from what I've been told and heard, is always part of the process, right? You put a design out there, and then you figure out what the budget is, and if it's beyond what the town's expecting, you gotta cut it out. You gotta cut stuff out. It's just the nature of the program. Now, if you felt it exceeded, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I don't know if the expectation was, and it kind of feels a little bit like a theme where it feels like the expectation is we're going to give you something, we just want you to accept it. And maybe you haven't dealt with a building committee that's this involved, but we're very involved and we question everything because we're entrusted to do so by the town. So yeah, I'm not sure if this one kind of rubbed me the wrong way, the value management one, to be honest.
Kind of, to add to that too, I would just say that for me, I was trying to think about it like what would be defined as unnecessary. So if we took unnecessary value management items and then we got more budget, if those truly were unnecessary, we would have added them back into the project. But many of the value management items never were brought back into the project. We kept the size adjustments as is. We accepted and continued with the classroom ring simplification. We stuck with concrete over pavers. We reduced the landscaping. We went with the slope steel instead of tapered insulation. We rejected the vegetative roof. We did not add that back on. And obviously there's more items, Porter Road, realignment, etc. So it is, I think for me to understand this better, I would really need more documentation about what was considered unnecessary in going through that value management process. We would be over budget today, even with the increased amount from the referendum, if we did not do that value management process. We would likely not have a project if we didn't do it. So to me, as Rosanna said, that was very significant and necessary effort, and the project budget was known through the RFQ process.
Yeah, and just maybe to put a finer point on it as well, I mean, we had to increase the budget because of the change in cost on many of the items. We also had some additional learnings on environmental surveys, so regardless, we would have been going to referendum to increase the budget.
Right.
To
Just
the
cost
chair, if I could
material.
add some context, to
Sure.
Perkins Eastman's credit, the first meeting that we all as consultant team were together with you, they did make the comment that given current conditions at the time the design was being put in motion, the project could not be built for the dollars that you had. They were very upfront with that.
Right.
Pulling a slide from the presentation we made to the town council prior to getting the green light for referendum, feelings and recollections being what they are, they can change over the course of a year. Here's a slide from last April, from the April 6th presentation. At referendum in 22, your budget was 58.6. At the end of schematic design, the project was estimated all in at 76.8. We value engineered between schematic throughout design development and into the design development estimate in order to come up with a number responsive to the council's request. Come back when you know more. Don't give us preliminary information. Come back when you know something more concrete. Mm-hmm. And so we kept sharpening the pencil as design continued, and the number that we put in front of the town council for consideration, the raw number, was $70.8 million. So $6 million under where we were at schematic design. Then there was the conversation about bolstering our owner's contingency. So that was money that was added to that 70.8. And then we had the potential cost impact of 2 months of the design hold for everybody to stand down during the referendum process. That brought us into the second referendum's approved value for both projects of 72.6 million. So I think the biggest takeaway here is that from the commencement of design with the warning, you don't have enough money, to schematics, we quantified work valued not 58, but 76. We knew we were not going to be able to get, you knew you were not going to be able to get the community to support a close to $20 million add on this project. So the number was value engineered, quote unquote, between schematics and DD to get down to 70.8 for that raw cost. As you noted, we didn't add back things that were on the value management list. It wasn't as though, hey, the referendum passed, let's put the pinstripes back on the Porsche. We kept that frugal mindset and made even further cautions with alternates, not knowing where the number was going to be on bid day. So in looking through the record of what we had as value management logs, the documentation, even back to schematic design, looking at the estimate track from DD to show where the dollars went up and down from schematics to DD, I don't see anything was a backward look. I don't see any, I agree with you, Shannon, that there was no value engineering that didn't get put to use. So I don't know what Perkins might be misremembering about the process, to use the words unnecessary. But yes, there was significant effort, and we needed that to get that $6 million out of the building just to be able to approach the council for referendum number 2.
So I could respond to that a little bit. Once we went through the referendum, we then continued to do value management in CDs as well. So I think this number that we're looking for is for that effort following the referendum.
But that was known because we had to pause, right? Or else we would have been doing it through the pause. So we had to stop because the town made us stop.
I think what Joe was saying is that during the construction documents phase, which occurred after the referendum passed,
Right,
there were additional value management
right.
things that you
Because
asked
we
them to do.
couldn't do it during the pause. So we had to wait to referendum. Once we passed the referendum,
Right.
we got the green light to continue, and we had told the town council we're going to continue doing value management. The 72 is high. We're going to try to still bring it down more.
What I'm hearing is, we kept sharpening the pencil for you, owner, and you came in under budget. So we did things we didn't have to do. Is that kind of a summary of what you're saying?
Mhm.
Can I borrow your crystal ball? Because I didn't have one at the time that would say that we were gonna come in under budget. That's why the committee voted to add certain areas of the scope as add alternates to the project. I know you're coming to that. But it was done as a cost management tool. It's been done on just about every project that I can think of in the last 5 or 10 years.
All we were saying, Jack, it was just excessively done and post facto not necessary
So if,
to maintain
so if some,
the
so if we,
budget.
so if we had not been successful in awarding to as many of the apparent low bidders, if some other bidders fell out and the net GMP went up and ate up some of that, what appears as savings at this point, all of those construction document phase value management efforts would have gotten us by the skin of our teeth.
There's 100 what-if scenarios, but that just happens to be one that didn't occur.
The difficulty here, though, is why weren't we talking about this back then? Hindsight is 2020. So why weren't these costs coming to us? So the 200,000 or for this particular item, I don't have it right in front of me right now, but we could have decided to keep one of those items and not spend money on getting it out of the list.
Right. Like if it would cost us
Yeah.
more to value manage it out than just to keep it in, we would
We
have
should have just kept it.
kept it in.
So
So
that's why
is-
we should have known then.
Jess gets 22,330 just for your reference.
Is that what you're saying, that some of the things that were taken out, we spent as much on fees as we got back on reduced construction cost?
We're not saying that,
No.
Joe, Jack, we don't have that exact correlation, we haven't gone to that.
But again, I mean, go back to the crystal ball analogy. None of us knew what the market was gonna do. We even added $800,000 to the number at referendum time for the potential cost creep of the 2-month shutdown. In the end, thankfully, the bids came in under the revised budget. But none of us could have foretold that. So to say, well, you came in X dollars under budget, some of that came off the sweat of our brow because we value engineered stuff out. Shame on you, owner. I think that's kind of a tough argument to make.
We're not saying that.
That's the way it sounds.
I think what we're saying is if you look at the number of different tasks and the values associated with them, they're incrementally small amounts. So to come with a small amount each time, we would have been turned away as we were with the fence redesign. We had again, that was a value management task that we went through. It got value managed, got accepted. In the end, the committee wasn't happy with the fence design around the basin. We offered a additional service for that, and we were rejected for that. So, again,
I'd rather,
and each one of these
I'd rather
items is a
focus on the,
benefit to
the value
project.
management things that were accepted and put into the documents and went out to bid. If the bids came in and when we tallied up all the numbers, the GMP came in $2,500 under budget, would we be having this conversation? Would the words unnecessary value management be in the vocabulary?
I think it's time to move to the next one.
I think the context is important.
All right, I talked about this one enough. Anyone else have any other short? Okay, next one, task 3, design of the bid alternates related to item above the AE team? What's AE?
Architecture, engineer,
Oh, architect engineer.
design team.
Design, thank you. Designed several substantial bid alternates requiring designing and documenting 2 or more options for several areas of the project. So I know of the amphitheater. What was the other one?
I think there was 7 or 8 alternates. There was the brick at Main Street.
The on the wall?
Yeah. So there was 2 options there. There was, my memory's failing me of all the alternates.
Amphitheater, baseball field
Thank
irrigation,
you.
sod at the softball field, aluminum feeders, brick at Main Street, sod at the multipurpose field. And then there was 2 mechanical things that the town said were required, and they had sole source vendors that were listed as well, so we didn't really have an option for those 2.
What were those 2?
I didn't put them in my notes.
Okay. So
Going
the sod
back-
is just a call out, isn't that? Is that a design change? I don't know. Irrigation, I thought we had to hire another company to do the irrigation design.
So we had some coordination with the documents with that, writing the spec to get that level.
Gotcha.
Back to that section of the contract that I was reading from earlier, item 7 under that section 4.2.1 specifically lists preparation of design and documentation for alternate bids requested by the owner as an additional service. So that's clearly called out in the contract that they're able to get paid for that.
So can
Sorry. I was gonna say, one question I had about the bid alternates, is specifically related to the 16 hours of interior design. I would just like to know what that went to.
That went to the brick at Main Street.
We're talking about the wall, right?
Mm-hmm. So there was detailing and presentations and renderings and
Gotcha. Renderings, that's big. Okay.
interior elevations.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, so, this was Ken Cleveland's comment. He said, which bid alternates were substantial. I have no objection to approving additional fees for irrigation at the baseball field and indoor batting cages, as neither of these were part of the original scope. Amphitheater bid alternate was part of the value and engineering effort and should not be included. The irrigation is definitely something that was. How do we spec out the different work though out of this one, because you kind of lumped it all together?
For the bid alternates.
Yeah, task 3. Like if we were to say, well, what went into the
So-
irrigation, for example?
So that would, a lot of that was for the spec writer. Write that specification section.
The hours, yeah.
Yeah.
Spec writer.
Oh, into each alternate?
Well, I'm just saying, like, could you, if we were just, like, yeah, so irrigation, so to Ken's point, irrigation and the, baseball cages.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you be able to pinpoint how many hours were devoted to either of those?
Yeah, we could look back and see if we could discern that from the timesheets. Oops.
So you're saying the 16 hours for interior design, that was for the wall, brick wall.
Mhm.
The 20 hours for specifications was for everything or something
That would
specific?
be tied to, so we have a bid alternate spec section plus the other sections that tie to that and coordinating those.
So it's kind of divvied up between all the different. And then the landscape, 96 hours. That's for the amphitheater.
The sod, the
Sod.
mhm.
Does that require design change, or is that just like a call out on
It's
your
a
design?
spec change,
Spec change.
from the landscape architect.
Okay. Okay. Anyone have any other questions on these? If not, we'll move on. All right, task 4, referendum period. Perkins Eastman expended time to finalize items going into the second referendum. While we were pencils down, PE expended additional time during this period for calls and answering questions. We also expended time after referendum to reassign staff and onboard new team members to complete the design work.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty minimal here. I don't really have any issues with this one, personally. Anyone have any thoughts, objections? No questions?
No, just curious, who was asking questions? I'm not objecting to this one. I just want to make sure we know,
I'd have
because
to,
we're all supposed to be in a quiet period.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
have to go back and check.
You have
Okay.
4 hours, Joe, for your time, do you?
I have no idea what I did.
Fair enough.
I have to go back.
Yeah, maybe just go back and find out what those 4 hours were for. I mean, if it's like internal coordination type stuff,
With Joe, probably was.
that's what I'm guessing. And then Lauren, what would she be doing during that time?
For 1 hour, I'm
yeah.
not sure.
Okay, all right.
Could have been sending out documents, or I'm not sure what it would have been.
Oh,
for.
so wait. Oh, but this was also, you're saying this also included onboarding. So I'm guessing the
Right.
3 of you were working on to onboard whoever the new people were. Gotcha. Okay. Yep. Right. Number 5, interior finishes. The team spent considerably more time to complete the design and selection of interior finishes as a result of answering to 2 masters, the educators and the SBC. We repeated meetings and made changes to designs that were in essence accepted by the educators but did not meet CMS approval, BC approvals. Extended time was expended to come to a consensus with the DSC, the district, and the CMS-BC. So, and I kind of remember having like a little stand-down discussion around this time about everything really needing to come through the building committee, right? Before we go talk to the school, talk to the BOE, talk to the town even, because what happens is these kinds of situations where you're going to get conflicting information. Ultimately, the building committee is responsible for those choices. We get input from the Board of Education. We get input from the facilitators, Enza and her staff. We get lots and lots of input from the town, but ultimately we have to make the initial decision before we can move forward. So if you felt like there were 2 masters, I think it's kind of on you. Because we had kind of set those ground rules right from the beginning that everything really needs to come funnel through the building committee first. I know we had meetings. I don't remember like excessive meetings though, because I remember we had that one meeting where everyone came, we touched samples and stuff, and we were given like options, but like it was like color code options. I don't think we really rejected much to it. I think it really came down to like, I think Dr. Macri didn't like the green or something for one, and we wanted more red. But aside from that, I don't recall major changes as far as like we want completely different patterns or a completely different color scheme or anything like that. I thought we were pretty easy as far as accepting in general, and it was just fine tuning some of the selections to like which rooms really should get certain colors and things like that. The only major change I think was the common areas where we went from the color scheme of the school to more of that red and gray, the Cromwell red, and the colors associated with that. So let's see. I feel like this falls under that whole, additional services thing too, Jack, about like if they felt like it was added work. I don't know.
Again, no communication till now on the item, so one could look at it as untimely. Whether the level of effort dealing with educators and the committee was a double effort, serving the two masters. I can say that the meetings here at the full committee were probably as deeply in detail as the design review committee meetings were, which is not typical. Usually the building committee will take the recommendations of their design committee and move it forward. So I know that there was some presentation time that was probably a duplicate effort. But as far as the actual design, whether that was duplicative, I think in every job, you've got multiple stakeholders and you're trying to communicate with all of them and get input and satisfy all the expectations of the various. So I don't see that that's particularly unique to this project. I think the only unique piece was the presentations to the full committee were more detailed than I would typically expect.
I just want to make a quick note on that. I remember, so when we had the July 19th meeting, and this was the first time the full committee, why is my mic so loud? That was the first time the full committee was seeing the interiors outside of the subcommittee. But something that really struck me in that meeting was that many of the designs that were being presented to us had not been through the subcommittee. The information had been taken from a meeting that took place with the administration. So one of my questions would be, was the subcommittee present at that meeting with the administration, and or were they invited and there was a schedule conflict? And then why do we circumvent that process? I think that's kind of what Rosanna was saying too. We circumvented our design process, which I think then led to a lot more questions because the subcommittee didn't get a chance to view renderings before putting them forward to the full committee.
Do you remember that at all, Heather? Or I know it's a long time ago.
Or Joe and Joe. Joe and Joe can answer that too. They're the ones who had the meeting with the administration. So I'm just.
I'd have to look back too. I don't recall a separate meeting with administration, but I could look back.
So if you rewatch the July 19th meeting, those renderings, I asked several times, did the subcommittee see and review these? And you said no, it was from the administration, not you specifically, just
I was gonna say,
the general you.
I remember in a meeting asking if the design subcommittee had seen them, and we had not.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. I can't pinpoint context or what images they were. I'd have to go back and watch them.
Yeah, it's part of the interiors presentations.
I do recall that comment, but I think it was more for that there was updates made following the design subcommittee meeting is what I recall.
No, there were updates made following the administration meeting.
Okay.
And
I'll
then
have to check
those
back. I don't remember
updates
a
didn't go
separate
to the
meeting.
design subcommittee. So I think, and that's where Rosanna said we had the stand down about going through that process. But that process was also made clear when we established the design subcommittee.
Right.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments?
I just want to make a quick D&I note as well that two masters can be a very offensive term, and I think that we should just rethink about the language that we're using for that.
We could adjust that.
Actually,
in the final.
Ken said the same thing about that terminology. Yeah, he pretty much reiterated what you said, Shannon. Any other comments on this one? All right, moving on to, where are we, 6? Third-party code review. Time spent during typical pencils down period during third-party review. P continued to attend meetings and answer questions during this review period. Wasn't this captured in task 4? If it's during the pencils down period?
No, this is post when after we issue construction documents. The documents then go to a third-party code reviewer, and typically during that time, there's very little action that's going on while we're waiting for comments back. But we were continuing to have multiple meetings and design meetings, door hardware, etc. That was occurring during that time. So third-party code review for this task is probably not quite accurate. It's should have been third-party code review period.
So is it typical that things stop? I guess I'm a little confused.
I would ask the question in a different way. So, what you're describing, like, well, you're still working with the hardware consultant, you're still answering questions, still going to meetings with design issues, which infers that the documents that were given to the code reviewer were not 100% documents. There was still work to be done. So that's on the one side of the coin.
Specifically for the door hardware, that is correct. We didn't receive the specification until middle of September.
And the other side of the coin is, just because you're in a transition period doesn't mean that we all get reassigned to some other work and nothing crops up in our email box or nobody rings our phone. Pencils down does not mean go away.
Correct.
I'm just surprised at the magnitude of the request, or even the mindset behind it, that as though you could just walk away from the project for 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, it wasn't meant to be walked away, but there were still actions going on that would not have been typical for that period.
Which, as you acknowledged, the documents that went to the code reviewer were not quite 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So attended meetings and answering questions, but you have like 24 hours. Does that mean you had 24 hours worth of meetings?
I could get a further breakdown of those hours.
Seems a little excessive. Like, how long was this period, this pencils down period?
It's about 4.5 weeks, probably.
4.5 weeks.
That'd be 6 hours a week.
And within that
Yeah.
period, the questions or citations would have come back from the code reviewer and needing responses by the design team.
But we were,
So that was all part of,
this is
That was
after
into
referendum,
September.
right?
this is after construction
after
documents were
construction
complete, before we went up to the state for approval.
But we were still getting invoiced for time spent by Perkins Eastman during this time, right? It's not like you weren't getting paid for anything.
Right. So we were burning through fee during this time that we wouldn't have normally anticipated burning through.
So this third-party code review, is that something that was unique to this program,
No.
this project?
No, this
No,
is
this-
saying that the title of this task is probably should have been expanded to been the period of the third party code review.
I'm still not, I'm having a hard time with this. I'm still not clear as to what this period of time was and why the work should have happened during that time.
So
Does
it's
that make sense? Like,
so
I
it's
just know what
after the
was.
construction documents, prior to the bids coming in? Is that what we're talking
So
about?
it's after construction documents prior to receiving third party code review comments.
But why is that a trigger? Like, why is that third party
Because
comments like a?
Typically, we wouldn't be meeting with door hardware consultants and doing things like that during
So,
that time.
but at some point you have to meet with the door hardware consultants,
right,
right?
it typically would have been during construction documents.
But that's task
But
number
we
8
couldn't-
on here, isn't it?
Yeah. So are you like double counting that time then?
So that time would be the time spent to onboard the new hardware consultant.
Why is there a new hardware consultant when the customer just decides to choose what they want to choose, and we have to, why did we get Dorma forced down our throat when
So
we?
it wouldn't have been Dormer forced down the throat because when we work with Dormer, they write an open spec
Mhm.
because it's a public bid.
Right, and then when
So we've
Dorman
been-
goes out to bid with another company, much more quality hardware company, they get their low bid and they get the job. That's what I see happening there. That's why we wanted to rule Dorma out,
Mm-hmm.
so we could get a better hardware
Right.
into the,
And that happened
into the building.
In
I just don't understand why, we're being forced to use Dorma hardware.
I don't think we were forcing you to do anything. We asked for project requirements at the beginning, and that wasn't one that was listed, and then it came on later in the project.
Yeah, it seems to me that just a little bit more information is needed. Like, what were the dates that during this third-party code I guess it's really, so the time frame was from the end of CD to when third-party review comments came in. What were those dates? And then what activity took place, right? I think that might help us understand if it was, exorbitant or more than maybe what was expected.
Okay. We could provide that.
Right, and that it was also not part of what we were already getting charged for during that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ken Cleveland, I'll just tell you what his comments were here. So he was under the impression this is a third-party code review, so maybe this skewed his response, but he says, we need to fully understand what meetings and questions are being asked, were these required due to incomplete documents. Third-party code reviews are fairly common, so I have trouble understanding why additional fee is being requested. Was the third-party code review in lieu of building inspector and fire marshal's review? So, but we're saying this is just that time period, not the code, not the review
Right,
itself.
not the actual review.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if we can just define it by those dates, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and what the actual hours go to, because I'm still confused as to what was, because in here it says it's for meetings and answering questions, but this 68 hours for meetings and answering questions seems kind of excessive when you're doing other work and having other meetings. All right, moving on. Task 7, environmental wall graphics. We commenced our discussion of environmental wall graphics as a way of enhancing the student experience and culture of your new middle school, recognizing the importance of a positive environment and the emotional challenges sometimes experienced in large middle school settings. The design team commenced some initial thoughts and ideas to enhance the school design. So, okay, so we didn't, I guess, I was never under the impression that this was an additional service, the graphics. Like, we had proceeded forward as if that was part of the plan. Like, you're gonna provide some graphics, you guys were all excited about it, like, this is great, we wanted the building to look good, yada yada. So, I'm a little taken back that now you're saying, well, we did all this design work and we want you to pay for it. We didn't ask you to do it. Like, it was just assumed you were just presented it as you were going to do that. And then I think at least the designs I saw were not great. They were just I'm struggling to see how someone spent, let's see, 30 hours? I don't know. Now, there's rendering. Were there renderings? There were probably renderings, I think, with some of the imaging.
Multiple renderings.
Through the chair, could I ask a question on
Yeah.
context? Is this number articulated here in task, task 7?
Mm-hmm.
Is that looking forward? Because I thought when we had our initial meeting with the town manager on this topic, you had said we had expended, we offered to do this, we expended some effort.
Mm-hmm.
The designs that we presented weren't accepted, so there would be more work going forward in order to get over that finish line. Is this a forward-looking quantification of effort, or is this a backward look?
It's hours spent to date.
Spent to
So
date?
it's backward looking? Okay.
So backward look for something that the client didn't ask for, that Perkins was offering as a feature,
Mm-hmm.
and you're saying that since they didn't accept what you offered and that more work would be required, why are we looking backward instead of forward? If this was something that you were willing to do as an offering to the owner, why are we seeing a bill for it? And would there be another bill looking forward?
So this is one of the reasons I wanted to table this discussion until we looked at the entire ask. So this is something we would have liked to have offered and wanted to have in the project. And as we spent all the other fees on all these other tasks, this is kind of falling into a point of where we can no longer spend fee to go back and work on this.
I can see the, depletion of resources. I budgeted so many hours for the whole job, and my burn rate is too high. But back to the question, if this is something that, if the client accepted the designs you presented weeks or months ago regarding the wall graphics, would we be having this conversation now? Or is it
Probably
only
not.
because there looked as though some more work was in front of us?
Right.
And if that's the case, will there be another ask for that work moving forward?
I would,
If the work is not accepted, the design, it doesn't sound like it is, most likely, yes. It would have to be treated as a PSR.
So at that point, you'd provide another quote.
We would create a proposal for that and bring that to the building.
And when we talk about wall graphics, we're not talking about logos, right? I think we talked about that last time. We're talking about actual design work.
yes,
So I have
the vinyl wall graphics.
this is where I'm having a hard time digesting this, is because we have graphics. We had graphics, how many graphics discussions about the gym and those and everything. Maybe it was just me. I was never under the impression that the breakout space placeholders that we would be doing or the design in the cafeteria was like something different. Like I just assumed it was part of the design, it was part of the building, it was gonna be part of the process.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a really hard time with this.
So
I'm-
you're basically
I'm struggling.
Yeah, and if I were to look at the number here, so you're in your plan for this project, you only budgeted 14,000 to do all of the graphics for the whole building? Because that's what this number is. You're saying you depleted that
We probably would have less than that, yeah.
for the entire school building. You would have spent less hours to do all the graphic design. I mean, do you have that image of what they actually provided? Because
Yeah, can
I think everyone needs to get their eyes on it and so we can see what we actually got.
Yeah, there was multiple.
So the only thing the building committee received
Or the logos.
for wall graphics.
We had one presentation.
That was
one
the
round.
subcommittee
The
too,
subcommittee.
right?
No, but the building committee, we saw the cafeteria, right?
No,
I thought we did.
no. We never brought anything to the full committee because
Okay.
we had one round and we were supposed to go back and then we kept getting pushed out because they were working on other things and we never
We never had another.
we never connected back.
We had one.
And then I had a
So
meeting
what
with
graphics did you receive? Which spaces did you receive graphics for? You received, Jessica, the Main Street wall, the cafeteria.
Media center.
I thought the media center was a placeholder.
No, that was designed for that.
Did you receive a
And the
design for the
classroom
media
corridors.
center?
I can
So there was one presentation to the design subcommittee where we presented themes and then multiple options for those themes.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
all those spaces. We received comments from that meeting. We went back and we made adjustments. Then we informally, before one of the building committees formally showed Heather what those were in preparation of, we were supposed to have a meeting on December 1st, and I believe that was on November 29th. I don't know if I had the dates in here. Where we received an email from Heather indicating that there was still concerns about where the graphics were. And at that point, we're getting into bidding, and we at that point tabled where we were with the graphics.
Right.
Since then, we discovered our challenges with the fee and hence where we are with the graphics. So that's why it's part of the overall conversation regarding the entire fee.
So this was the first presentation that we received.
Arrows to the right.
So these were the spaces that we talked about, the 2 breakout spaces on the end of each wing, the media center wall, and the cafeteria wall, and then Main Street. So again, Main Street, up above the brick, that long corridor. You can see to the right on the cafeteria, that wall there, the breakout space, and then the media center wall. So then we talked about themes, and what theme we were going to go with. Were we going to go school pride, typographic, history, nature, all that sort of thing we kind of talked about. They gave us some examples. School pride gave us 2 renderings for, this is the cafeteria. Yes, the cafeteria, which we were not a fan of either. They gave us examples of the typographic messages and gave us this example for the cafeteria, which we all agreed we liked having the SOAR theme in there, but if we could somehow pull in some of the other, because I believe there was some of the school colors to kind of tie into the school theme.
Yeah.
And then the other theme was the history, another was nature, and then they gave us this design for Main Street, which none of us liked. John had a really good point. If you're standing like outside the gym doors and you look up, all you see is brown. You don't really see the whole graphic. You can't identify that it's a falcon. It just looks brown. So, and then they had like an abstract idea, and they gave us this for Main Street, which again, I was not a fan of from the beginning.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a pixelated abstract river view, but it just felt to me like it didn't tie into the school enough.
What's that thing on the right?
Another
falcon.
So this was like your initial kind of like design fact finding, right? Like you have to go through the process of like feeling out, like you're seeing examples. You weren't really into like the iterative design process.
So, and where was the media center like proposal in here? I see a lot of
None.
themes, options, things other.
There was no rendering in this presentation on the media center or the breakout spaces.
So this was just a themes discussion, like what
Right.
what kind of things would you want?
Right.
But they didn't actually provide, like, this is what we came up with.
We had, as Joe said, we had another meeting that was soon after. So we had this meeting, then we had a building committee meeting, and then we were supposed to have another design committee meeting shortly thereafter. And then Joe had showed me some of the designs prior to that building committee meeting, and they still were not meeting my expectations of where I saw things going. And I knew that I as the chair was not going to present some of that stuff to the committee, and it still needed work. I hadn't even met with the full design committee. I just knew that as a chair I wasn't going to bring it. And so that's when I drafted the email with some feedback, and that was the last we heard until now. Apparently we've exhausted our resources, which, like I said last meeting, had I known we had a limitation as to time or resources, I would have jumped on Canva and come up with some ideas and guided discussions a little bit more and streamlined the process.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're saying that we've exhausted our resources for the design of the wall graphics. We've exhausted our resources for design overall. So we're out of fee to continue designing. So that's where the issue is with the wall graphics specifically.
So you're saying it's a victim of circumstance. If we got this all wrapped up in a year and a half ago, you wouldn't be here saying, hey, we spent too much on design. It would have just been whatever,
It would have been.
whatever is left to be done, that would have been the thing that you assigned the cost overage to.
Right.
Again, I just have a hard time when we weren't given a box to work within.
Well, but going back to the whole point of this memo is, why are we being charged for this work?
So we're showing throughout the process of the design process that these tasks, which were technically additional services, and volumetric wall graphics generally is a additional service for a project, was one of the items that would be that how we got to where we got to with our fee.
Right, but if you expected this to be an additional service, like, that should have been very clearly like, hey, we want to do this for you, but it's not part of our contract. Do you want us to do it for you? No, it's always assumed as that. I mean, it was sold as, yeah, we were going to do this with you. Like,
It was in the renderings as placeholders, so that to me is the assumption that it's going to be further worked until we put something we like in that space.
all right.
Yeah, I think it would definitely have been fair, right? Like if we hit some kind of design threshold for that to be communicated to us, and then, you know, a proposal to be put together to say to continue with these graphics. I mean, I think it would, you know, the communication, obviously I wasn't a part of the design subcommittees and it didn't come to the full committee, but just kind of summarizing, it did seem like the communication was very clear. I understand, Joe, how you're saying, like, we're trying to look at this from a holistic standpoint, but at the same time, if it's an add-on service, it's really not holistic either. It's still an add-on service. So I do think kind of ongoing communication, you know, would have been very helpful.
So, I assume aside from all this, you're probably going to provide a proposal for continuing that work. But are there assumptions with that proposal where you say, well, we're going to give you one last set of options and kind of take it or leave it? Or, like, if you don't like it, we're going to quote you again for another iteration? Like, you're going to, like, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? Like,
From what I just heard, it sounds like you have a lot more work to do to find a solution that's acceptable. That's what it sounds like to me.
right?
Yeah.
I guess my question is, you have certain assumptions that you go into putting that proposal together.
Yeah.
Are you assuming that there's been one iteration, two iterations, three iterations? Like, how does that get factored in?
I guess the best way to answer that, Rosanna, is that we did not anticipate what I would say the number of different options that were necessary to reach approval.
But we only
And-
got one options, the way I
no.
hear it.
No,
We got the theme presentation, and then
The second one that we never got because
Yeah.
the chair
Yeah.
decided, I wasn't.
but there was the theme presentations you showed, and then they provided you with options, right?
So
And
that
they
was
gave
the
you-
first option. Yeah. So there was a theme presentation, right?
Those
like
aren't
the,
options.
Those
are
aren't
themes.
options. Those are coming down on a theme. Yes, you made some options in there, but that was definitely your choice to make. You could have just showed theme items, and then the first option was presented to Heather, and she provided feedback on that.
Should be some more back and forth.
yeah, I honestly, I don't know because I was not part of those discussions. I did not attend any of those graphics discussions, but what I heard from the team is that there was a lot more effort put forth than what we were anticipating or what we've experienced with other building committees. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's move on. Task 8.
I think we covered this one already.
With our door hardware, yeah. Anyone have any other comments on the door hardware? Let's see what. Yeah, let me see what Ken wrote on here. Why did work extend beyond CDs? Was it due to poor management or incomplete documentation? We decided on a vendor fairly early, and the CMSBC did a fair amount of this work.
This is saying during the third party review. So I feel like this either needs to go into like, why is door hardware spiked out from the third-party code review, task 6?
I think it was the time spent on it, and why it went beyond was we were not getting responses from the hardware consultant. I don't know if they were too busy in July or what it was. We kept multiple times phone calls and emails telling them our deadline, and it extended into August with a meeting, I think, with you guys, and then we had another meeting in September, maybe, or I had meetings. I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
I vaguely remember
Specifically-
that. Was that because of the pause that we couldn't?
Or was it during the time that our facilities director, I forgot when,
Oh yeah, she left.
she resigned.
I have to go back in my notes and look at that.
I think John Post was the one who picked up the ball and said, no, this is what this,
Yeah, didn't
That-
you call them, John?
you
I
you
thought you
were-
arranged a
John
meeting
called
with
them.
them.
I believe
yeah,
John
it
called
wasn't,
them
it
too,
wasn't
so-
Belinda, it was you.
They, yeah, we
that
arranged for a
initiated
meeting, and they did the spec for
conversation.
free. Did they do spec for free too?
They
Correct?
usually do.
Yeah, yeah.
And all of them do.
Do you remember
It's-
them
it's
being
design
like
assist.
non-responsive?
No, not at all. No, I don't know where that's coming from, honestly, but I wasn't there behind the scenes, so I can't really answer to
Hmm.
that.
All right, let's move on. Task 9, fence options. Design of the fences for the project were value managed and approved by the building committee. Chain link fence around the retention basin was part of the accepted VM and by the building committee and was subsequently approved by planning and zoning. PE at the request of the building committee reviewed multiple different options following the completion of CDs.
Mm-hmm.
I think the operable word is in the second to the last line. No, in the last line, reviewed multiple fence options. There was no work product provided. There were a couple of conversations, and then Ken Cleveland said that he would take it upon himself to provide the detail that Newfield used in order to define the alternate in the bid documents. So for a $3,500 effort to review, I mean, what did review consist of?
Presentations, research, coordination with Richter and Segan.
But coordinating what? Nothing was changed. The documents weren't changed.
Well, they had to
Right.
get Richter Segan's approval of, or unapproval of, the,
Wood
Rail-
rail.
wood rail.
Single wood rail.
Yeah, I think we presented 6 different options, presentation, research, looking into the code.
It's $3,500.
Yeah, I think we would need more documentation to understand this one. And I wasn't able to go through the meetings for this one like I would have liked to, but, so I'm doing this a bit off memory, but the presentation included 3 images of fences, so it didn't seem like there was substantial research done there. As was noted, Ken designed the documents. And, I just lost my other thought.
the Richter Segan part.
Oh, when we asked about the code,
We Googled it.
we Googled it and found it and presented it in a meeting.
That, and you went to the town with verbiage that kind of caught us off balance, so we had to scramble for something different, right? So there was work there. Ken didn't really say much. He said stuff, but let's see.
I think we covered.
I think we covered it. Yeah. Any other comments on the fence? All right. On task 10, extended schedule to start construction, substantially longer period between completion of construction documents and authorization to bid the project. This period was approximately 3 months longer than indicated in the RFP and our initial schedules. Various factors contribute to the extended schedule, including scheduling initial PCR meeting, extended OGA review period, resubmitting information to OGA, finalizing cost data for OGA review, and local official sign-off process, thus extending schedule resulted in additional time being spent for meetings, calls, correspondence, mission, etc. Why do we have to resubmit information to OGA?
We provided information to them initially, including what ended up being called Addendum 0. OGA then required us to repackage everything as one compiled set for their review. So we resubmitted that.
Is that have they never asked for that kind of packaging before?
Usually once we submit something we don't have to repackage. They had the information already.
Do you recall, Jack, why they wanted it repackaged?
I think the overall quantity of information was such that they wanted to have the audit record be as concise as they could be by having that combined data.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens a lot, but when I look at the narrative and the price tag, we didn't receive any similar requests for additional effort from Newfield, because this is all part of their pre-construction effort, is to get through the plan review with the state. Arcadis was there providing support and some documentation along the process as well. And in a perfect world, yeah, you submit and within a couple of weeks you get a letter, but it's very rare that things go that quickly, and the larger the project, the longer it likely is going to take. Overall, schedule to start construction, okay, if you want to start looking at a whole variety of things that all add up from the day your quote-unquote pencils down, which when we see items such as task 6 and task 8 in there, says, well, when were the pencils really down? When were we complete? Were we complete enough when we submitted to the state, or was some of the stuff that had to be resubmitted additive, not just duplicative? Frankly, I was pretty shocked to see the magnitude of this request. It's not unusual for the review process to be an effort that all of us carrying the ball over the goal line. And I said sometimes it is longer than others, but I don't think what was submitted at the first meeting, the first PCR meeting, was entirely satisfactory to them. Not only can you combine it into a different way, but there was documentation that was not per their expectations and had to be resubmitted. So.
And we're waiting for approval from, what was the name of that group? OSTA? That delayed things too, right?
That did
But we
not
had,
extend.
didn't we submit something to them
We-
late?
We had a condition on our approval. We were okay to go out to bid, but they said that we couldn't start construction until we had OSTA.
Construction can start.
So that didn't delay the letter.
But didn't we submit stuff to them kinda late?
There was a progressive submission. It wasn't all there on the first day.
Yeah. So I need to understand if the extended OGA review period and subsequent submissions and local sign-offs were due to incomplete documents. We know there was a substantial amount of bid RFIs due to incomplete work. Did this contribute to the extended schedule? That was Ken's comment. So going through all the RFIs, is that part of this period too?
No.
It wasn't part of this period? Okay.
We can provide more detail.
But also authorization to bid the project means you're allowed to go out to bid, not receive the bids, right? That's what you meant.
Well, if I may ask, you, the title of this task, extended schedule to start construction, so I guess in providing additional information, if you could clarify, you know, is that an accurate title, you know, to start construction, meaning from?
It's to go to
from
bid,
what
not
s-
start
from what
construction,
start,
right?
you know, what start date to what
Okay.
milestone?
So extended schedule to get to bid, to go out to bid. From when? From completion of construction documents?
Mhm. And then looking at this, I'm just seeing that there's time here for DeSimone, which was for steel pre-detailing, so I think that should be broken out from this as well. So I'll make
Because
that
we
adjustment.
already paid for that, didn't we?
DeSimone would have been doing that as a shop drawing review during the construction period, so.
We'll have to elaborate on that more, because they had comments on that.
Okay.
So we'll break that up and provide more detail for that.
Any other comments on this one? All right, last one is 11 Gear Street. Design and documentation of a new crossing with curb ramps at the new three-way stop on Gear Street per town of Cromwell requirements.
This
Yeah.
was a regulatory review requirement, and again, consistent with the language that's in the contract. This is clearly shown as something that is compensable.
Yeah. Okay. And then, for the printing, were you able to find the invoices, Joe, to see how much they actually would cost?
I'm still working on getting that through accounting.
Okay.
Since we send it out, I have to get it through our vendor, and I don't think we've received it yet.
2,500 seems excessive.
Oh, that's not just for that one.
Oh, what-
That was the reimbursable, the charge against for all these little items.
Yeah, at the last meeting, you approved creating that allowance so that they would have something to bill against.
I thought we held off approving it.
Yeah, I think that was tabled.
That was tabled.
Was it table?
Yeah.
And we presented last time, so.
Yeah, I think just, I mean, it seems very reasonable, just understanding, I think we just need to know what's in there, right? Like, I know you quoted us the boards would be about $50 each. I know we had to print more sets of documents for the town, so I think just understanding that breakdown.
Okay. Yeah, I can have that we were in the last two invoices for the printing. The boards, I haven't seen the invoice for that yet.
All right. That's the last of it.
No, 13.
13.
Miscellaneous, here, you want me to just read it for you?
Yeah, why do I not
Task
have it?
13, miscellaneous building committee requests
It's on
not
page 3.
included in total.
So that's not included in the
Oh.
alternates.
Oh. Thank you.
Oh, so that's not in the,
Or is it? Now I'm confused.
oh yeah, no, so it looks like 11 and 12 were not, or sorry,
So-
12 and 13 were not included.
But
So
we're
we're still
saying-
waiting on pricing for those, is that what you're saying?
Well,
Are you asking for compensation for 13, or you're saying that these are things that you did and you're not asking for money?
Yeah.
I thought we were. I thought we
And
talked
I
about
thought number
irrigation.
3
Yeah,
was,
so the
did
irrigation
include
is,
irrigation and
sorry,
vetting
so the
pages.
irrigation is built into the alternates, not the alternate.
Yeah, the
Yes,
alternates.
it
Alternates,
alternates.
thank you.
Yeah.
And then renderings and presentations materials would be 12B.
Yeah, so there was previous ones that weren't charged for, and
You said batting cages was also something that was in the
so that was in
alternates.
the alternates, yes.
And the renderings
So
is part of
I'll
part of reimbursables.
I'll break that out then.
Okay. So those are all accounted for somewhere else.
Yes.
And we're still waiting for task 12, or waiting for the final number. And the 2,500 is just an estimate at this point in time.
So that would be a reimbursable amount to charge against, where if there was other,
Oh, so that's the line item that we would create the 2,500, and you're getting those invoices for what we have to expense to it.
right.
Yeah, so the 25 is just creating a budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
And moving forward, if there is any charges against that, we'll let you know prior to charging against it.
Yeah. Got it.
Anything goes above and beyond what's contracted. We need to know up front. Okay, so we've gone through the list. I think we still have to go back and get more information on a few of these. The extended schedule one, I think there's some questions on that one.
My notes I had on task 3 to spike out the amphitheater.
Yeah.
Task 6, looking for dates and what activities took place that were beyond what we would have normally expected as part of the contract. Task 8, do we combine that with task 6? Because it sounds like we spent a lot of time talking about the door hardware in task 6. Task 10, we need the dates and what activities took place. And then we already talked about 12.
What's the best way to handle this, Jack? Wait till we get all the information and then assess everything as one big whole thing again? Okay. So.
Can I also ask, like, this was, would this be through a specific date? Was this through kind of work efforts expended versus anticipated through, say, 12/31, based on the, like, a calendar year accounting review, or? Okay. Because the genesis of the question is, you know, will we see another, like, ASR a year from now?
No, because they're going to be forward-looking and let us know if there's anything beyond the contract to negotiate.
Okay.
And this goes back to, like, a year ago, really, right? Pretty much.
More than a year ago.
What do we talk,
Because the auditorium's in here. That was over a year.
it was?
Yeah, it's probably January of 23. Yeah.
December even.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'll say 12/22. All right. So we'll table this for now until we get the additional information, and then we'll revisit it. Hopefully by the next meeting, Joe, you'll have the data that everyone's looking for. Alrighty.
Can I again ask that we get that information by Monday before our meeting so we have time to review?
It'll be the 15th. 15th, right? First, yeah. Anyone out next week? Anyone away? You're away? I'm not gonna be away, but I'm not looking. You're going away? Joe, are you off next week?
I'm actually off the week of the 15th.
Oh, you are? Okay.
And so is Joe, so we'll have to see who gets the short straw.
Excellent. All right. Not Newfield. Arcadis, Jack.
Those other guys.
The other guys.
Well, good evening. It'll be an abbreviated report tonight because the monthly financials were not processed in time to get into the packet. So just a quick overview, project updates, look ahead on work, and some project status photos. I've got Ron here. He should be updating you on these things.
I think everything else was
Have the
updated.
clicker.
I can't even read it. No, that's why I didn't write it down. Yeah, so okay, so the target schedules of the activities, I believe Chris from Newfield had given you a pretty good update, but they're continuing with the subgrade prep and filling. They're also dewatering locally to be able to get that subgrade moving. And the foundations, he talked about that, right now the footings that they've shifted those about a week right now. The bioretention basin, which we had talked about earlier, that the TST is in place and they're currently doing their dewatering. Tri-State is out there pretty much every day while they're prepping the subgrade, getting that ready, and then doing their lifts with the fill material. Friedman is the stormwater management consultant who's been out multiple times during the week, following up after all the rainstorms, checking the ENS and what have you. There's been just one little minor issue that they wanted, and that was taken care of. So that's moving along. Last with the contaminated soils, they were still looking for the profile. They have the profile of the soil, and they're looking to find the facility that will take it. So the portable classroom is gone, and every week Newfield's running through their submittal reviews with the entire design team, and we're having weekly owner construction meetings, so with the design team and some of the contractors. So that's all moving. The critical items we talked about with the site dewatering, so they're working on that. And as of right now, we're still fighting through the abnormal seasonal high groundwater. So those have been the two items that we've been working on, and it's been just kind of a repeat of what we had just said.
Okay.
So right here, when we had talked about that TST, you can see the basin. I don't know if everybody knows where we're looking, but right here, that's what they're talking about. And the existing site drain, where they're talking about catching the parking lots and what have you, there's they've done all their piping, and it's literally dumping out into this basin. Right in this general area right now is where they have that dewatering well point, which is going across the field with hoses down to the irrigation pond. And you can see right here is where they're pushing out one of the footings, the slabs. And this picture right here is just showing the overall progress of the site being prepped. Again, the picture on the left is showing the dewatering efforts. Right here is one of their wells, and they're prepping the TST. Then on the photo on the right is Tri-State working with the site contractor, Mathers, putting the subgrade down, and you can actually see the dewatering efforts going around their work area. Any questions?
Are you comfortable with us putting any of these pictures on our social media?
Well, these are public record, so.
Okay, thank you.
These were taken last week. That's it.
Thank you. Jack, do you want to update the committee on the solar panels and the stew fence thing?
I do. We've contacted Office of Grants Administration and Plan Reviewers after the last meeting, presented to them the fact that we have funding available within the project that we would like to use to invest in solar, so that we're looking not for a change in budget at all, but to submit for a scope change to expand the project content to include the solar. I reached out, having not heard an answer back, to Andrea, our reviewer. She said that she was in communication with the grant side of the house. Today, Emily also got a call from the grant side of the house, just to quiz her on some of the particulars, and she assured them we're not looking for any change in the budget. We have the resources, we just want to incorporate that feature. So if nothing else, we've gotten both halves of the house to talk to each other, which is a good sign. It sounds, since we're not looking for additional funding, that this should not be a big deal. You know, with a short legislative session this year, the question to Emily was, well, are you going to be submitting special legislation in order to push through a change? We said, no, we don't. It's just a 49R, which is, a change in the a change in the project. The only box we're going to check is scope change.
Yeah.
So it doesn't require any kind of legislative action. This is something that can be done at the department level. So there was a seeming sigh of relief at that. Not one more thing to feed into the hopper for the legislative session.
Okay.
So I expect that within the week we should be getting some sort of response, and I anticipate it to be a positive one.
Okay, great.
That would, so if it gets put in through that mechanism, then we would see reimbursement on it, or would be considered ineligible?
It would become an approved component that would be reimbursable.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, Jack, maybe you said this. Did you, who did you talk to at the town first? Had you approached anyone at the town about it? I wasn't sure if there was.
Claudia Lozano, from the district, was the one who had approached the committee, and we were asking. So my next step with the department was to say, how would we go about doing this, to be able to use available resources in order to add this feature to the project. And Claudia
Okay,
was.
why did I think?
Claudio's information was pretty compelling, that on the schools that including the
Yeah,
existing
yeah.
middle school where they have the solar
I'll tell you.
panels, his electrical bill is amazingly lower than the buildings that do not have it.
We didn't include it in the original proposal because our previous project manager, and I think with the current environment of the state, they weren't including it as a reimbursable expense.
Oh, right.
And or
no,
if
no,
you
I
got
knew
any.
this. I knew this was always going to be an after.
Oh, yeah.
I knew this was going to be like an after addendum item. I just meant, even from just a couple weeks ago when we talked about it, I thought the first step was to talk to someone at the town. But maybe you're saying Claudio as kind of
The state, talked with the state first.
Yeah, talked
and
to-
then
Claudia brought it
once
to
the state
us.
says okay, then we go to the town.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
And relative to the fencing around the detention basin, committee had decided that they wanted, as an alternative to the chain link, the wood rail fence with the wire attached to the backside, so that you still had a barrier nobody's going to sneak through because the wire was attached. Sent the detail that we used for bidding over to planning. I got a follow-up request this afternoon saying that they want some information about the gate that would go into the pond for maintenance. Obviously, we know what a gate and a chain link fence looks like. They were asking, what would it look like in the context of a wood rail fence, and that Ken Cleveland offered to provide a detail. It won't be till next week till we can get that to Stuart. But at the moment, I'll be hopeful and say that it appears as though we may be able to do this just as an administrative approval and not have to go back to the actual zoning board.
Okay,
So.
that'd be great, hopefully. All right, anything else, Jack? No invoices to approve tonight. Fantastic. All right, anyone else have anything? Matt?
Yeah. Can we just go and make a motion to go into executive session to maybe just debrief amongst the committee members and Jack on the ASR items?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Anyone object? All right. So we'll go into executive session with Jack. Everyone else can go home. Thank you.